Imagine being trapped in a dark, suffocating stone bunker. You are starving, you are dying of disease. For nearly a year, you've been shot at every single day. You are holding the line for your country, believing reinforcements are just over the horizon. But what if I told you that the war you are fighting had already been over for months? What if your empire had already collapsed? Your country had sold the land you're standing on, and your enemy was actually telling you the truth. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are looking at one of the most bizarre, psychologically terrifying, and heroic military standoffs in human history. In 1898, 54 Spanish soldiers barricaded themselves inside a church to fight off Filipino revolutionaries. They stayed there for 337 days. This is the story of Los Últimos de Filipinas, the last ones of the Philippines. To understand how this nightmare started, we have to go back to June 1898. The Philippine Revolution is at its absolute boiling point. Baler was a remote, isolated outpost. The Spanish garrison stationed there, led by Captain Enrique de las Morenas, knew they were sitting ducks. On June 27, 1898, as Filipino forces advanced, Captain de las Morenas ordered his 54 men to fall back into the church. They brought ammunition, medical supplies, and enough food for what they thought would be a few weeks. They barricaded the doors. The soldiers began ripping up the wooden floorboards of the church, digging deep trenches into the earth inside the nave. The church was no longer a place of worship. It was a dark, damp underground bunker. The first few months were brutal. Filipino revolutionaries, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Teodorico Luna, surrounded the church completely. If a Spanish soldier even walked past a window, a Filipino sniper would take the shot. But bullets weren't the real enemy. It was the environment. The dampness and lack of sunlight took a horrific toll. By September, their food began to rot. Their meager rations of rice and beans spoiled. And then came the silent killer, Beriberi. It causes your limbs to swell, fluid to build up in your lungs, and eventually heart failure. First to die was the priest. Then in November, Captain de las Morenas himself succumbed to the disease. Command fell to a fiercely stubborn officer, Lieutenant Saturnino Martin Cerezo. If the previous captain was holding the line, Cerezo was willing to die on it. He instituted ironclad discipline. Anyone who talked of surrender was threatened with execution. They resorted to eating stray dogs, rats, and snails. But Cerezo kept telling his men, "Spain will not abandon us." In December 1898, the Treaty of Paris was signed. Spain officially surrendered. Under flags of truce, Filipino officers approached the church doors and left Spanish newspapers detailing the surrender of Manila. But Lieutenant Cerezo refused to believe it. He thought it was a trick, a brilliant psychological operation by the Katipunan. In April 1899, an American naval ship, the USS Yorktown, arrived off the coast. The US sent a landing party, but they were ambushed. Inside the church, the Spaniards heard the gunfire. Cerezo assumed the gunfire was the Spanish Navy finally arriving. By May 1899, they had been underground for nearly a year. 14 men had died from disease. 2 died from bullets. In a final attempt to end it peacefully, a Spanish lieutenant colonel arrived with orders from Madrid and left local newspapers. As Cerezo's eyes scanned one of the pages, he froze. It was a tiny announcement about the marriage of a close friend back in Spain. The realization hit him. The papers were real. They had been fighting for a phantom country for 337 days. On June 2, 1899, the doors of the Baler church opened. 33 emaciated, ghost-like men stepped out into the sunlight. Philippine President Emilio Aguinaldo was so moved by their resilience, he declared them Friends of the Philippine Republic. Today, June 30th, is celebrated as Philippine-Spanish Friendship Day to commemorate this exact event. If you enjoy this deep dive into history, hit that like button and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what we should cover next.